Welcome back, everybody. This is QuestionMarc,
And I'm Ame.
and today we are finally doing a change of pace. We're doing a completely different type of video, and I think you can see immediately what type of video we're doing.
Tierlist Magic the Gathering, focusing on the commanders for Aetherdrift.
Yeah, so we haven't done any tier lists on this channel, and clearly they are a genre that is quite popular. I like watching them, and I think in tiers sometimes.
Yeah, I like pausing tier videos so that we can argue about where we think it should go,
We
or
do
where
it
it goes for us personally.
We do it all the time for free and without recording. Might as well record one on something that we care about, especially one that's topical because this set is coming out soon. It's hardly even done being previewed.
Alright, so without further ado, let's get into it. Our relevance is not getting any fresher.
Well, so also as a little bit of a background here, our channel so far has been strictly gaming for quite a while, strictly video games.
We play games and we tell dumb jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we give people silly voices.
Mm-hmm. But we both play Magic the Gathering, and specifically Commander, and that's what video is going to be about. I would honestly love to talk about Magic and Commander more. And what would you say your background with Magic and Commander is?
It tried for over a decade to invade my life, and a couple years ago it finally succeeded.
Yay! that that
I
can be
am largely
interpreted.
here to due to peer pressure, but I do rather like it, and there are aspects that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm much more of a casual fan than an expert.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I have been playing Commander for over a decade and Magic for over two. So this is my number one hobby. It's this and video games. I am that level of nerd, and I love talking about Commander. I think about it all the time. So we have not really looked at the new commanders from this set yet. Barely glimpsed at some of them, and so let's offer our combination of expertise and flavor opinion.
Yay!
So we're going to go through them in order, and the first one in order alphabetically is Atchik Emerald Radian. Atchik Emerald Radian is 3 black, black, green for a legendary creature insect druid. They're a 3/3. When Atchik enters, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each artifact and or creature card in your graveyard.
That is some Golgari right there.
Oh yeah, creatures in graveyard matter, artifacts in graveyard matter, making
Ooh.
insects. But just to finish, whenever another insect you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Atchik. Each opponent loses 1 life.
All of the bugs, it doesn't matter if they die.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously this is a big flavor win for the set. One of the 10 racing teams in Aetherdrift is the kind of bug team that they die and they come back, and that's their whole thing.
Do not look under that hood. It smells terrible. It is disgusting, and half of them have wings.
Yeah, and I heard that the flavor here is that Atchik, win or lose, kind of wants to die and become the race card that they use next year.
I was under the impression it was less dying and more molting.
Well,
It's more a vision of transcendence than true death.
Yes. I mean, she'll probably mechanically go from a creature to being not a creature, but yeah.
But that's fine. But in her culture, that is totally fine. That's the goal.
Okay, so that's some of the lore. Now, mechanically, I like to say that a good starting point just for a creature that you might use in combat is the mana value the same as the power and the same as the toughness. 6 mana, 3 power, 3 toughness. So as a Rumbler, does not meet the cut, but there's always exceptions. Great abilities can go a long ways. When she enters, you're going to be making some number of insects. If you build around it properly, it could be a lot. And whenever another insect you control dies, you put a counter on her and each opponent loses 1 life. This is an excellent ability in a bug deck. And look at that. She can get around her 3/3 size weakness and become large.
And rather quickly.
And Insect Druid, like, there's a little bit of usefulness to these creature types. And all right, I'm gonna kind of cut to the chase here. I have an insect deck already that is Jund colors, and this is 100% going in that deck.
I'm not sure I would want it for a commander, though, because that is still a pretty steep cost. I mean, you have to be able to be good until turn 7 at the earliest. Well, maybe not at the earliest if you get Soul Ring. Point is, this is a
Mm-hmm.
pricey commander, and you'd have to
Mm-hmm.
build your deck to basically be able to look after itself until she can get on the field. So you
Mm-hmm.
want ramp.
So, I mean, granted, in green, you've got lots of ramp. In black, you've got a fair amount of ramp. From your dark rituals and your sacrifice, and what's that one where you can pay one black, sack a creature, and make four black? I don't remember what that one's called. But between black and green, you've got a lot of ramp. You can easily get this commander out a turn early every game, on average, probably more than one turn early. And with that, the only problem is you gotta load up your graveyard first. So actually, if you want to load up your graveyard first, maybe ramping into this isn't the goal. Maybe you don't want to accelerate that much with things like Soul Ring and Rampant Growth and cultivate whatever else you're doing like that.
What
Maybe
if
you
you
actually want to spend the 6 turns legitimately filling up your graveyard.
Okay, here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
What about tap for mana abilities or creature type taps for mana?
Hmm.
You know, like elves. Elves come to mind.
Oh, you're talking about dorks.
Oh yes.
Creatures that tap for mana.
Get
Well,
can we get a bunch of insect dorks?
so every deck needs to have card draw, every deck needs to have ramp, every deck needs to have removal. Just this deck wants its elements to be insects, and it wants them to be artifacts and creatures that can go into graveyards. So the trick, I think, would be finding insects, artifacts, and creatures that go to your graveyard as part of your ramp and as part of your card draw.
Where Wayfarer's Bauble comes to mind.
Wayfarer's Bauble, yeah, an artifact that goes to your graveyard and ramps. Sakura Tribe Elder, everybody plays
Yeah.
Steve. So yeah, do I think that this is the most powerful commander? No, but I think this is a fine commander.
This is a you can do interesting things with this commander.
Mm-hmm. This should be relatively fun. It incentivizes you in a little bit unique direction with insects. Because honestly, to me, that is what takes you from a good commander to a great one. Is when you look at a card that you're like, mechanically, this is pretty solid. But importantly, it encourages me to build in a direction that is a little unusual, a little unique. And this does that. So for me, if I was ranking these in terms of sheer power, this might be a B or something. But in my tier system, I'm excited to build. Honestly, this thing has a little bit of a cheat code because it's just going to go in my bug deck.
And for me, I think I would put it in not for me since
Yeah, that's fine. It might not have the particular spice, and I can see that. It's not super exciting on its own, but that's okay.
and since this is
Um,
our tier list and not just your tier list, what
mhm.
say we average it out to I like it?
Ooh, okay, because I'm genuinely going to build with this card, but um, hmm. Okay, I will concede at this time.
This is averaging out our opinions.
Okay. So next in the list we have Basri, Tomorrow's Champion. Do you want to start the reading?
All right. Basri Tomorrow's Champion. That's one white mana, legendary creature, human knight. For a white mana and a tap, you exert Basri. Exert? Oh, an
It'll
exerted creature
explain.
won't untap during your next untap step. Okay. You create a kitty, a
Yeah.
1/1 kitty with lifelink,
Yeah.
which is pretty neat.
Hmm.
You can also cycle it. And when you do, cats you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
Okay, so a 1 mana 2/1. I mean, does anyone else here remember Savannah Lions?
No.
Well, Okay, that's because they haven't reprinted Savannah Lions in any meaningful way. Like, I think it's been uncommon in a couple of sets, might be in Foundations or something. But Savannah Lions was all the way back in Alpha, the gold standard. It was 1 mana for a 2/1, and then that's it. That was the whole card, and it was like, ooh, this one's pushed. Whereas nowadays, 1 mana for a 2/1, it better have some abilities.
The elements don't really seem to complement each other. I mean, yeah, they both involve kitties, but in order to get white cat creature token with lifelink, Basri needs to be on field, but in order to be cycled, Basri needs to be in hand. So it's a little bit. It's mostly just cats,
Yeah, the weird thing is,
which is
this
great. I
guy
love
as a
cats.
commander, kind of crap.
Yeah,
Because you can't cycle your commander unless you somehow get it in your hand, and in mono white, good freaking luck.
unless someone bounces him, and you can't really count on the other players for anything.
No, no, of course not. So as a
No
commander,
matter where you put him, he's not doing his best.
yeah, I mean, because you cannot use this mechanic and this mechanic at the same time. You could hardly do them in the same turn or anything like that. So these are really two different things that this 1 mana creature can do. So the question is, do you play him in your cat commander decks?
No,
I think,
not as commander anyway.
okay, it depends on how much you need either of these effects. This effect would be great, creating a cat token with lifelink every turn, except it's every other turn.
Maybe if you put him in a Selesnya or Bant deck, then you can, have a token explosion. Honestly, this card seems to be more weighted toward the cycling ability.
Yes, because, okay, honestly, if you have a dedicated cat deck, this is kind of great just to cycle. I think that this is good in the 99 if your commander is a like white-green cat, like Kahira or something, or why am I forgetting his name? The OG cat commander with Eminence.
A Johnny?
No, Johnny's a cat man, but
The
Arabo is who I'm thinking of.
right, that big glorious kitty who looks like he's a lord of the jungle
Yes.
with the fur.
Yes. So Basri, I think
I think
I
he's
have to
kind of
put in
lame.
questionable.
Well, are we doing this? Are we doing these
You
for
know
general
what? You're
cards
right,
or
you're
as
right.
commanders?
As commander,
As commanders,
he's lame.
no.
Yeah. But
Do
I
it if
could-
you wanna, but you're really gonna have to work to make it work.
Yeah, honestly, this guy is Garbo as a commander, but in the 99 of an established cat deck, he's got some utility that could be very powerful.
Right.
In fact, one last note on that. Cycling this card is not casting a spell, so you can literally do this even if you can't cast a spell, or even if you're worried about counter spells. You can still give your army hexproof and indestructible, and draw a card.
Yeah, he's better off in the 99.
Oh yeah, way better. So next we have, okay, so I saw that this is part of a kind of cycle. Kaelorna. What are you wooing about?
It's a giant octopus that's totally ruining a freeway. Of course I'm excited.
Wonderful. In fact, why don't you read this one?
Kaelorna, Coral Tyrant. We've got 2 mana, one of which is blue, a legendary octopus. For centuries, she grew in her benthic home, safe from Muraganda's moonfalls, feeding on the raw ley lines that run below the water. When she emerged, the coral depths she called home came with her. This Mother Ocean is angry, and she is coming for us.
And she's a 0/8 for 2.
Okay, so she's a 2, but she's also a no attack big back.
Is she a 2 or an 8 out of 10? Okay.
I do like that she's a big blocker.
Okay, so here's the deal, is that Muragondra is a plane that's known for being, like, really basic. A lot of cards in its past have been either vanilla, like this, where it has no abilities, or have said something like you can only spend basic land mana on this, and things like that. Or Muragondra Petroglyphs, I believe, is the first card to refer to it, and it says creatures you control with no abilities get +3/+3.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Muragondra is basic, but, like, kind of big.
Big and basic. That's not bad. That's great. Even basic things are fine.
I'm just noticing, look at them driving up the tentacle, the mad lads.
Oh my god.
Okay, so
Unfortunately, her attack capabilities and ability capabilities don't reflect the destructive power in the art, which is a little disappointing. I would not have this for a commander.
absolutely not. I was saying before that this is a part of a cycle of commanders that are thematically from Muraganda, and therefore they're all vanilla. There's 5 uncommon commanders that are just a little pushed in terms of the numbers, but have no abilities.
Oof, you
Do-
are gonna have to put so many cards into bestow abilities. I'm thinking auras, I'm thinking enchantments, I am thinking
Equipment?
more equipment than the armory is capable of letting you requisition at this current time.
Yeah, I mentioned Muragandra petroglyphs, and that is a green card, so you can't really run that. Um, and there was another card that I was thinking of. Is it? It's not Calyx. Charix, I think. I should have been doing something like this the whole time. Charix. Check out this commander.
Okay, spells your opponent's cast that target Charix costs 2 more to cast, so that's a nice ward. Gets plus X till end of turn, where X is the number of islands. See, this is great.
Plus X minus X, actually.
Plus X minus X, okay.
Yeah, 'cause
but
you see
that's
that
a big
toughness?
back. But that's a big back, so it still works.
I think that might be the highest printed toughness in Magic's history.
Nice. But yeah,
So-
that you can make work.
Yeah.
With Kaelorna, I'm sorry, but you'd have to build your deck to support your commander and not the other way around, which is, how most commander decks work. The commander supports the entire deck rather than
One more reference I want to make here. Can you read this one for us?
Fenax, God of Deception. Got some Loki vibes, I like it. Legendary enchantment creature, God!
God.
And it's indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue and black is less than 7, it's not a creature. Creatures you have get tapped. Target player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard, where X is this creature's toughness. So usually 7.
Yes. So, well, all creatures you control have it. So, Kaelorna is a 2-mana 0/8 that can now tap to mill someone for 8.
Neat.
So, there are a few niche circumstances where being a 2-mana 0/8 could be really good. Is that the command zone?
No.
Not at all.
Again, there are paths to make this workable, but not very many, and even then I think you'd only be able to bring it up to workable, not reliable.
It's not worth doing, honestly.
No.
But do these go in the 99 of any decks?
Well,
honestly, even that's a stretch. So
I'd
so
put
they're
Kaelorna in
definitely
my
going
deck
in
for
lane.
a cheap big back blocker. Especially if I need my deck to cook for a minute while I get it together.
Exactly. What we're going to see here is that if your commander cares about a big number in the power or the toughness and wants it to be an efficient card in terms of like the lowest cost possible to get a big number on the power or toughness, then maybe you'll play one of these cards in the 99. But usually you won't. And definitely not as a commander. Next one we've got Captain Howler Sea Scourge.
This art goes hard.
I'd like
Look
to read
at this
this
guy.
4 mana for a legendary creature shark pirate. It's 2 colorless, a blue and a red. So is it colors?
Woo!
And shark pirate. Gotta love that. He has ward 2 mana and pay 2 life. Nice. And whenever you discard 1 or more cards, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, you draw a card. And he's a 5/4 for 4.
Woof.
You remember when I said a little bit ago that you want the mana value here 4, and then the toughness 4, and the power to be 5? So just in terms of raw combat stats, solid dude. And then ward on top of it without having to do any work. So I could see this going in the, like, just in terms of raw vanilla stats, this guy is already above curve. But that ability, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It gives you something to work towards, and that's always good. Specifically, you want to be discarding. Well, it says one or more cards. Oh wait, for each card discarded this way though.
Yep.
Okay, so you could do Wheel of Fortune and discard 7, or Windfall and discard 7.
And if someone
And
tries to go and mess with your hand, guess what?
yeah, yeah, it does count discard that your opponents do to you, but you probably more likely to do discard to yourself in this case, and then get a bunch of +2s. And you can do it at instant speed potentially. Granted, most of the wheels and stuff are sorceries. But I gotta show you one other thing. So all of these cards, probably all of them, have an alternate art.
Oh yeah, we got to see the alternate art for this guy because it goes even harder.
Okay, for your sake, I feel like we got to show the alternate art on maybe all of them. But for once, we have a reason why one of these is $4 and the other one's $14. And
Look at
this
this!
is
Look at
why.
this!
Look at this Shark Man. By the way, I heard the flavor that he gets like a tattoo to represent each of his conquests. And so he wants to get one more tattoo, maybe like there, to represent him winning this race.
I
if
want
he
to see
can
this
do
guy
it.
doing the haka.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. He's giving like what's the guy in Moana?
Maui.
Yeah, he's giving
Very
Maui vibes. Yeah. And honestly, if you have this as your commander, this is what you want.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this
That's
is
good.
fine. This
That's
is
good.
good.
That's good. The
Marco
other.
Feloni, very fine job.
That's
But
good.
Mark
This is
Zug-
great.
And Mark Zug, by the way, he's an OG. He's a legend in Magic the Gathering art. How many results do we get? 199 for Mark Zug.
Dang.
Dating back at least to 1998. So, yeah. Okay, very pleased with that. Now,
Look at this unit.
now, how do we rate this guy as a commander? Am I going to play him as a commander? I think the deck that encourages you to build is blue-red wheels, and we've seen it before. At least the wheels are the strangely enough, the engine.
Lol.
And then you have to aim this at some creatures that you're going to attack with. So I'm thinking little creatures with evasion that you then buff up by discarding your hand.
You mean minnows?
Sure. And a lot of pirates fall into that category already. So you could go with a pirate theme. You can hardly go with a shark theme. There's not really... there are sharks in Magic, but there's not...
But not a ton.
There's no synergies really for them.
Sorry, bud, you're
Except-
gonna have to be a big fish in a little pond.
Strangely, Brawlin and Shabraz. I think it's Shabraz is the one current legendary shark, and he is also red-blue and cares about discarding. And I checked, and there are a number of pirates and sharks and fish in this set that also care about discarding. So there's some support for this. So where do I think this fits as a commander? I'm going to say I like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Okay. This guy got out of order. In fact, did they all get out of order? Crap. Yep, they all got out of order. Oh well,
Let's
we'll
just move
sort
on
it
to
out.
Let's just move on to the next one.
Okay, the next one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The next one here is
Caradora, Heart of Alakria.
You want to read this one?
Legendary creature, human knight. 2 plus green plus white. When Caradora enters, you may search your library for a mount or a vehicle card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And if one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature or vehicle you control, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on it instead.
Okay. And the last little bit.
4/2. So, okay, a bit of a skinny butt, but got a good front.
Why does she have so little defense when she's got armor and is holding up a shield that's blocking an attack for her mount?
Because she doesn't really have anywhere to evade to.
And
She
also...
also looks like she's gonna fall in a moment here, and I think that's what her mount is yelling at her about.
Well, the mount's gonna catch her, right?
Yeah, but it also is going to be a difficult maneuver that will probably leave them both vulnerable once they hit the bottom of it. You know, just like, Oof! Okay, now where were we going?
Well, also 4 mana and then 4/2. So the vanilla stats check, she fails. And green usually has the best and strongest creatures. So honestly, I was about to sing her praises, but the 2 toughness could seriously be an issue for her. The only reason I see as like she has 4 power being so good is because mounting creatures and saddling artifacts requires your power and not your toughness. Still, I feel like she needed at least 3 toughness here.
I guess if you're making a deck that's heavy on mounts or vehicles, and
Hmm.
let's see, sets that were heavy on vehicles.
Well,
Nuka
besides
Penna.
this one,
Nuka
yeah,
Penna.
yeah, true. Nuka had quite a few. Kamigawa had quite a few. The original set that had vehicles in it was Kaladesh. So it makes
Avishkar.
sense. Well, that was the name of the set, but
Okay.
the name of the plane is Avishkar.
I know, I know.
Hmm.
I feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable saying the other one because I happen to know that because, now we know that it's a slur.
Okay, but we're also not speaking Hindi, so I um I'm gonna continue to use the name for the set for clarity's sake, so people know because there is no set called Avishkar. But whenever I'm referring to the plane, I'm definitely using the new name.
And I'm not going to use the plane's other name whatsoever because saying any kind of slur in any kind of language makes me really uncomfortable.
That's understandable. So on this topic, though, this searches for a mount or a vehicle, which is excellent. The weird thing about this commander is, uh, I I want there to be a really good mount or vehicle commander, specifically mount commander. Is this it? Well, the weird thing is, I mean, she actually tutors for a specific mount or vehicle from your deck. So if you wanted to build a deck that was full of mounts or vehicles, you don't actually need this. This is not what you want. You want something that like maybe draws you cards or something. This is a deck where you could play like 3 mounts or 3 vehicles and just always get one of those 3, and then it's really good.
You'd have to be banking on her getting punted back to the command zone pretty quickly, though, if you wanted to build that fast.
Well, no, I mean the I think the ideal here would be you just if you
Or
resolve
flicker
her
her.
once, then you've done the thing. So the one time that you search for a mount or a vehicle needs to be worth it. So you're playing the few best mounts or few best vehicles or both, and that's your deck.
Do any mounts or vehicles come to mind that are that good?
Yeah, Parhelion the Second comes to mind. There's a couple of new ones in this set. Actually, there's a bunch of new ones in this set. The thing is, mounts. Well, I was also thinking of the Gitrog monster is a really good mount legendary creature, but it's black. So green and black. So once you can play in this deck, I mean, yeah, sure, there are a few. The gear per flagship. There's probably a few like the Pridwin in the Fallout set and stuff like that. Maybe the Warhammer set. So there definitely are some, but with this ability not really facilitating a mount or vehicle themed deck as much as it seems, it's more like a deck that has a couple. And this ability is nice, but it makes your vehicles keyword big get keyword bigger. In fact, she doesn't put +1/+1 counters on anything. She only puts more +1/+1 counters on things. So I think, where is she? Where is she? Is she down here? I can't identify. Wait, there she is. I think she's lame.
I think she's questionable.
You think she's questionable? I think she's lame.
Okay, I'm gonna let you have this one.
Oh wait, other art.
That is some boss art,
Oh,
though.
that's some beautiful art. Okay, so here's the deal: is that you need to have a couple of vehicles or mounts in your deck that already deal with +1/+1 counters, and even then, she's not that good of a card to be doing that. And actually,
It
here's a
seems like she'd be
question.
better in the 99.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe. If you build a deck that is a solid mount or vehicle deck, maybe she does go in the 99. But is there a good mount or vehicle commander? You would hope so. There better be.
But this ain't it.
Yeah, I mean, this builds a very specific deck. This is not the
I
throw
love her
all your
style. I love that
vehicles.
she
Oh
rides a
yeah.
giant
Oh
owl.
yeah.
This art is gorgeous. And I want to like her more than I do as a card.
Yuko Shimizu, you understood the assignment and you knocked it out of the park. Mirko Feloni, sad to say, once again, buddy, you've been upstaged by the other art.
We know you're doing your best. Keep going.
Yeah.
This is still good
this is
art.
Fine. This is good.
This is Star Wars stuff right here. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's a compliment.
Okay, but we're gonna keep our eye out for any other mount or vehicle commanders. Green White is the mount team in this race, so I was really hoping for some really good stuff here. But if I remember right, the other commander on this team is the mount, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. We'll see. That said, the next commander in the list is Duretti.
This guy looks cool.
And he was actually one of the first cards spoiled for this set.
Oh man,
so
check
I've
out
seen
those
him for a
treads on
while.
his chair.
Oh yeah, why don't you read this one?
All right, Duretti, Rocketeer Engineer. 4 mana plus red. Goblin Artificier. Duretti's power is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. Whenever Duretti enters or attacks, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice an artifact, and if you do, return the chosen card to the battlefield.
Okay.
Oh man, I
so-
love the flavor on this. This
yeah.
guy is this guy is an inventor, a builder, a tinkerer. He's a machinist through and through, and it shows. And he is all over it. And I love how well it synergizes with the art. It's like, you see this guy? You want to have a beer with him in the garage and talk about engines all day? He's your guy.
Absolute gearhead, and I like that he's
He's
got like
classy, gearhead.
the neon pink and the neon blue in his art, and he does in this one too on his cart.
I love how calm he looks. Like, this is just, he's in the zone, man. Normally you see goblins as hyperactive, destructive little squirts. This guy is chill.
And also, okay, can I talk about... We haven't talked much on this channel about woke, and we maybe never will, but I'm taking a moment to talk about woke because this guy is in a wheelchair. That is representation that matters.
And that's good. More of this.
It's absolutely good because there's honestly no drawback to it. You hear people complain about woke a lot these days.
Usually
and
disingenuously, I find.
yeah, some people can't even define it. And it's just like, whatever I don't like is woke. And is this woke? I would say yes. In the original, idea of the term is that people are awake to the disadvantages that some people have, that don't make them any less of a person, that they need to be respected and prided in, even more for what makes them different, as we all should be.
In that sense, woke means empathy.
It means respect. And I respect this man, and I respect anyone who looks at him and is like, yeah, that's like me. I
want to be that guy.
I may be in a wheelchair, but I'm a badass. And you absolutely are. And that's a good thing, and there's no reason for anyone to complain about it.
Yeah.
So,
This guy's cool. We need to see more cool guys like this.
exactly. And has there been a push for more of this in recent years? Yes. And is that a good thing? Also, yes. Because
Variety is the spice of life, people.
absolutely. We've seen more characters in Magic who are missing an arm, or, walk with a walking stick, or are older, or are different complexions. All kinds of different things like that.
And you know what?
And
They
that's
still look
great.
good.
And especially in the world of Magic, they do powerful things.
Yeah.
So, back to the mechanics here. Power is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. So you want to have the highest mana value of artifact possible, huh? Okay.
You want the good stuff.
Although, ideally, you don't pay that mana value, right?
Mm?
Because when he enters or attacks, you can choose an artifact card in your graveyard. You can sacrifice one that's on the battlefield to return that one from the graveyard back to the battlefield. So,
Like, we don't really need this we don't really need this food token, do we? Cool.
yeah, no.
I brought my dreadnought.
Yes. I mean, Phyrexian Dreadnought. Wait. Actually, hold on. That's a funny example to have given because let's see, Dreadnought. Let's look up Dreadnought. Okay, I spelled it wrong. Dreadnought. Yeah, let's bring in the Dreadnought. Look at this thing.
Woo!
How good would this be in the Duretti deck?
Wait, is that one even? Oh my god, it's legal in Commander.
Yep. You want to know how good this would be in a Duretti deck?
Whoo boy.
Terrible. It'd be
Sacrifice any number of creatures with a total power of 12 or more. Bury the. Ah, jeez.
no. Here's what it is. The mana value is 1.
Yeah.
So it's funny that as an example, you're like, bring back your Dreadnought, and I'm like, oh, its mana value is 1. No, but I get what you're saying that from a like flavorful standpoint, something that counts as a Dreadnought. In fact, wait a second.
I was just
Hold
using
on.
dreadnought as a word for
Yeah.
big, scary machine thing that this guy would totally bring if he could.
Absolutely. It's just funny that taking it literally, the most famous Dreadnought in Magic has a mana value of 1.
We don't really need this food token. Cool, I brought my dreadnought.
Yes, although not the literal Phyrexian Dreadnought. Okay, can you think of any other like big artifacts in terms of high cost? What's the biggest one that you can think of right now?
I'm thinking about Eldrazi.
Eldrazi are colorless, but they're usually not artifacts.
Oh, I thought
fact,
that a lot of
they-
them were artifact creatures, aren't they?
No,
Shows you what I know.
like Kozilek or whatever creature. None of these are artifacts actually. So I'll tell you then. The first thing that comes to my mind is Metalwork Colossus. I think is its name. Yeah, this guy.
Oh no.
So
Oh,
that
yes.
mana value of 11, except if you read the text,
Sacrifice 2 artifacts, return it from your graveyard to your hand.
I'm more looking at the other text.
The spell costs that much less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature art of... Oh dear.
Yeah, so you can potentially pay a whole lot less than 11 for this. In fact, you can pay 0 for it. Although some of your artifacts are likely going to be mana rocks, like Soul Rings and Arcane Signets and stuff. So even if this guy costs like 4, you can tap your rocks for it, and then he makes Duretti's power 11.
Yeah.
course-
And with Duretti, you just have to, like, oh, the Colossus is in the graveyard? The Colossus is in the graveyard. Okay, who's got a treasure token? Mm-hmm. Throw away the treasure token, get back the Colossus.
Yeah.
It's like, see, it wasn't that hard.
No. And actually, Red has a lot of card draw that comes in the form of draw and discard, or discard and draw usually. From Faithless Looting to the various like Unexpected Windfall and stuff like that. Like there are lots of red cards that have you discard and draw. So you discard this guy to draw more cards, and then you drop Duretti down and you bring him back to the battlefield. And you just keep doing that every turn.
Yeah.
I think the MVP of this deck, though, might be Mycosynth Golem? This guy.
Affinity for artifacts, okay. Artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts. Oh dear.
So he costs 1 less for each artifact you control, and all of your artifact creature spells cost 1 less for each artifact you control. And then honestly, just fill your deck with artifacts that either cost you no mana or cost you a little mana but like make mana, and artifacts that have the highest mana costs you've ever seen.
I'm almost envisioning a deck here called Duretti's Garage.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe Duretti's Workshop. I like Duretti's Garage better.
Also, the highest mana value in Magic last time I checked was Draco, which happens to be an artifact.
Yo!
So this is one of the very few decks where you might genuinely want to put Draco in it. Except for the domain ability here, if you want to read that.
Sacrifice it unless you pay 10. This cost is reduced by 2 for each basic land type among lands you control. Okay, yeah, that is a little tricky.
Okay, so here's what I'm imagining you do. You play Duretti, you do your whole sacrifice bring back thing once. Then when Duretti goes to attack, you bring back Draco onto the battlefield. 16. Duretti's power is now 16.
Oh,
It
Jesus.
changes as you attack with it, and then um, during your next upkeep, when Draco goes to do the like sacrifice, unless you pay 10 or something, you just don't pay it, and you let him go back to the graveyard. And Duretti gets smaller, but then you attack with Duretti again, and you bring him back again. You just keep bringing back the most expensive card in Magic's history and keep sacrificing it again, and who cares? And Duretti's huge.
Yeah, I think Duretti's going straight to the top for this one.
Absolutely. Duretti, eh, eh. There you go. Excited to build. I did brainstorm a deck around this guy, and it's kind of weird that the mana curve on this guy is kind of like a saddle. Like, 1, 2, 3, and then they disappear. And then they come back at like 6, 7, 10, 11, 16. So yeah, wild mana curve on that man, but it'll be fun.
Ooh, check out the mana curve on that one.
Ooh. All right, next we've got Far Fortune End Boss, who is definitely straight out of Mad Max.
All right, and we're looking at the Start Your Engines. This is the first one in our tier list to have the Start Your Engines thing.
Okay, why don't you continue to read these?
If you have no speed, it starts at 1. It increases once on each of your turns when an opponent loses life. Your max speed is 4.
Okay, and want to run down the rest of the stats here?
All right. 4 mana, 1 black, 1 red. 4/5, Human Mercenary. Whenever you attack, Far Fortune deals 1 damage to each opponent, so everybody's getting some catching strays here. And at max speed, if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 1!
Nice. Now, that may seem like a small thing, but that just means that, like how Far Fortune is written to begin with, you don't want to be dealing, casting spells that deal like 5 damage or 6 damage. You want to be casting spells that deal 1 damage often to many things.
Shrapnel, baby.
Because that way, dealing plus 1 damage is effectively doubling. So, her ability synergizes really well, because when you're at max speed, you'll be doing 2 damage to each opponent.
And since speed gain is based upon damage you're able to do during your turn, yeah, she's revving.
Oh yeah, she's going to get you up to speed quick. Here's one question that I haven't had answered from a source I trust yet. When you first play out a Start Your Engines card, you have no speed, and so it starts at 1. Then it increases once on each of your turns when an opponent loses life. If you get speed for the first time, starting at 1, and then you make an opponent lose life on that same turn, does your speed go up to 2? Or does your speed stay at 1 because increasing to 1 was an increase?
I think it would be that if you start your engine, if you place it down and then you cause damage to an opponent, then it still goes up to 2 because it increases once on each of your turns when an opponent loses life. It's contingent upon that. 1 is just starting position.
Yeah, so I am not 100% certain.
But what do I know?
If I have read this correctly, and if I have had it interpreted by others correctly, and if I'm also like reading the mechanic as not being absolute garbage, then yes, you can establish your speed at 1 and increase it to 2 on the same turn. And then you can't speed it up again until the next turn. So these are often 3-turn clocks to get up to full speed. From the time that you establish your Start Your Engines card. Also, there's no built-in mechanic for your speed going down, though there are a few cards that do it.
You're going to want to aim a bunch of them at her.
Also, your speed does not get affected by Proliferate, unlike, say, Energy, which is also in this set. But just vanilla stats-wise, What are we seeing here?
Well, vanilla stats wise, her attack is good. Her butt is great. Her butt is fine.
She clearly works out.
And
Um,
so she passes the vanilla test.
and then on top of that, whenever you attack, she deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's better than having 5 power. That's having 1 power that goes everywhere.
Yeah.
That's 4 power and a boomerang.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm noticing something here. 75 cents, 10.25. A huge difference. Is it how
Shall
good
we
is
take a
it?
peek?
Oh
Oh,
my.
yeah.
Oh my.
Oh,
I'm
my.
getting like Tank Girl vibes.
I'm getting a little tingly.
Okay, cool, cool. Um,
I'm a little scared, but I'm also kind of fascinated.
yeah. Oh, Justine Jones. Okay. So is this commander good? Yes, I
Yes.
think so. I think so. Um, I want to see more of the max speed cards. I want to see how much support there is for. But honestly, dealing 1 damage to everybody all the time deck exists, and
And that's a commander. That's nothing to sneeze at.
okay.
And
Here's
that's when you attack. If the attack itself is unsuccessful, everybody's still catching a little bit of commander damage there. So, yeah, that's really good.
well, okay. Good thing to keep in mind though. Commander damage only counts combat damage, as in only the damage that your creature deals with its power to the defending player by attacking them.
Oh, okay.
So this does not count as combat damage. It's a common thing that I see people not understanding. It's fine. Although if that was the case, then my guy Hidetsugu would like wreck everyone. Check out Heartless Hidetsugu.
Deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life. Oh,
Yep, you tap him, and you're generally dealing about 20 damage to each player. So if commander damage didn't have to be combat, then this guy would just have a stranglehold on people.
but he's legal in commander, so that's
Oh
clearly
yeah,
not the interpretation we're going with.
exactly.
Because otherwise, haha, no way.
And he is from Betrayers of Kamigawa in, if I can read that, 2005.
Oh, geez, I was in middle school.
And this is around when EDH was made. If I remember right, that Sheldon Menery and the other judges saw that legends were coming back in a big way in Kamigawa block, and they wanted to come up with a fun format that revolved around legendary creatures. And so Kamigawa block inspired EDH in the first place, which eventually became Commander. So that said, I have one last commentary on this, which is that every deck needs to have card draw, every deck needs to have ramp, every deck needs to have ways of ending your opponents. And your commander really needs to be doing kind of one of these things that every deck needs to do, and ideally is like a linchpin or a synergy piece that you can build upon. This has a lot of that, but it's all in the service of damage. So keep in mind that your commander does not give you card advantage. Your commander does not ramp you. And so while you would be tempted to trigger this a lot, and you still should, what she lacks is card draw and ramp and removal. And so a lot of your decks should be devoted to that. So with that in mind, since she doesn't solve the problem of card draw or ramp or anything or removal in red black, but those colors can do a decent enough job of those on their own, I think she's fun and I think she's great.
I like it.
I am
Oh.
excited to build.
Oh.
Yeah, I may build her. Cause although I think also she might conflict a little bit with, am I remembering the, no, it's not Oloro, is it Obosh that I'm thinking of? There are so many freaking commanders out there. Yeah. I wonder, does she conflict with this? Where the main thing is if a source you control with an odd mana value would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead.
She
So
has an even mana value.
exactly. So they can't really go in each other's decks. And this one does double damage. So this would seem stronger if you can limit yourself to just odd. Or there's also oh shoot, who's the demon from New Capenna? Um, why am I blanking on names today of all days? Um,
Because there's a microphone.
oh, probably it's not Rakdos. It's crud. Well,
Obnixilis, or am I thinking of someone else?
Omnixilis, thank you.
You're welcome. Why did I know that?
I think I've got maybe too many names in my head. That might be the problem today. I'm having trouble sorting through the many, many names I have in my head. Obnixilis Captive Kingpin. 4 mana for a 4/3 flying trample. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Obnixilis.
Oh, yeah,
Exile the top
that
card
could
of
be
your
frightening.
library until your next end step. You may play that card. So this is effectively card draw, right?
Indeed.
So this guy would have a very similar deck to Far Fortune, except this one kind of draws you cards. So a lot of people will prefer this. However, you know, you can still do this, and the damage is going to be more. But just keep in mind that this one has that built-in card draw. So if you want this deck to compete, you've got to put in more card draw of your own. All right. I think that's the pitfall, that when people have to choose between different commanders like this, and they're like, oh, this one's better because it has built-in card draw. I mean, that may be true, but you can keep up as long as you over prioritize the card draw that Obnixilis gets you for free.
Okay.
So, just a point of comparison for people who are deck building. But the next commander on our list here is Gaunty Knight Minister. You want to read this one?
Aetherborn Rogue. Okay, Aetherborn. That's got to be a new. Is that a new thing?
No,
No, it
but
isn't.
we last saw it in other Avishkar sets. So aside from March of the Machine, we saw them last in Aether Revolt.
I see he's in charge of the prize.
Yes.
Okay, we've got 4 mana. 2 of them have to be black. Whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token.
Oh.
Thievery. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exiles it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell this way, and he's a 3/4, so a little thin up top.
But close, and he keeps the butt, so he's not that fragile. Okay, whenever a
This is like a
creature.
malicious group hug.
Ooh, okay, what some people have called group slug. Yeah, this encourages people to deal combat damage to your opponents. Whenever a creature, okay, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library. Okay, so if your creatures hit one of your opponents, then you exile the top card, and yeah. But if one of your opponents hits another one of your opponents, they exile the top card, and the person who hit them can play it. How long? Exiles it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Okay, so effectively you've got to keep like 3 exile piles.
This is like inverted Ixel.
Something like that. I
I'm
actually
referencing a card that forces everybody else to exile a card and then give it to you every turn.
Yes. So I actually really like this because I think okay, I hear a lot of people complain about commander players like, "Oh, they don't want to attack. Oh, they get offended when you play a good spell. Oh, they don't like getting their permanents blown up and,
Well, nobody likes
we're
getting their permanents blown up.
and everyone is like, "Oh, we need to team up on this guy." And so
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who come from 60-player Magic and say that Commander is bad because it involves diplomacy, and that involves some threat management and kind of managing the emotions of your opponents, which I think that comes with a
That's
kind of
really
different
coming through
personality
here.
type.
Yeah. I can think of one very pretty bird who would probably use this card in their deck.
Why am I not thinking of it? Oh, well, okay. But look, the main thing here is this is how you strategize around the fact that there are multiple players. If you are savvy, you're doing things like this. You are now encouraging your opponents to attack each other instead of you. You're using the fact that there are multiple opponents as an advantage instead of a disadvantage, and their emotions as a like, ooh, but I want to get that extra thing, you know, and ooh, I want to get that treasure for casting someone else's spells.
It's kind of a prisoner's dilemma, isn't it?
Well, it's a win-win is the thing, is that sure, your opponents get to cast each other's spells, but they don't attack you when they do it. And normally I would feel a little restricted playing a mono black deck that you can only play black cards and artifacts, and that can get a little boring sometimes. But hey, look at that. Look at that. You can be playing a mono black deck and you can cast the spells off your opponent's libraries and any color. So it's all good. Honestly, this guy really cool.
That's also really good flavoring, considering this guy is well, as the Night Minister, he's one of the leaders of Avishkar, right?
Yeah, I believe that he was before, and he was seen as like, well, a roguish kind of guy. But despite being a leader, if I remember right, he's the one who ended up betraying the rest of the council and being like, actually, all of you guys suck, and I'm turning on you. I'm siding with the revolution.
Yeah, this guy, this fits in well because, well, he's basically a game master here. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
Caper for my amusement.
Mm-hmm. And he's always been like a black market guy too.
Yeah, this is I love it when mechanics fit well with the flavoring.
Ooh, and we got art by
Ooh.
Richard Kane Ferguson, one of
Ooh,
my
that's lovely.
favorites. In fact, I'll be honest, I'm not much of an old school guy in a lot of ways. Video games, you've seen me. I do have a little bit of a maybe more than a little bit of a bias against older games for looking kind of ugly. And same thing in Magic, honestly, that a lot of people like the retro frames and are like, oh, yeah, cards used to be so much more stylish back in 1997. And I'm like, I just think that stuff's ugly and inconsistent. And a lot of the artists back then, I'm kind of glad that we've kind of phased out their styles, but not Richard Kane Ferguson. Richard Kane Ferguson is the one guy who does a kind of archaic style that you don't see anymore in Magic, and
It
I
looks
think
like
it's
a mural.
amazing.
This looks
Mm-hmm.
like a mural to me, or
Mm-hmm.
like a very beautiful tapestry or a painting. I love it.
Yeah, honestly, Richard Kane Ferguson is the one guy that I actually feel is elevated by his kind of throwback to an older style of art. So Gonti Knight Minister, you know what?
I'm kind of between I like it and I'm excited to build because I can sense
Yeah.
the malicious compliance coming from it.
Yes, honestly, this is also my favorite kind of evil in Commander. The evil where you literally can tempt people into it and be like, "Come on."
He he does have a deck called Stupid Prizes.
Oh yeah, I have a deck called Win Stupid Prizes. It's my worst deck. I'm probably gonna take it apart soon.
Oh,
Yeah, it has. I'm not sure it has won a game, and it has made a lot of people upset. But we can talk about that some other time. Let's go on to Hashaton. Scarab's Fist. Why don't you read it?
okay. We've got one white, one black. Legendary creature Zombie Wizard. Whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay two plus a blue, and if you do, create a tap token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. And that's a 1/3. I served the
So,
scarab in an age long past, in another form, under another name. No matter their visage, I serve.
so you may remember from the last time that we were on Amonkhet that there used to be five gods, one for each color, and then there were three new ones, and the god Pharaoh, who is Nicol Bolas, who brought them back. Yada yada yada. Four of the five old gods died. One or two of the returned gods have somehow died. Nicol Bolas is in interplanar jail. So they've been doing some new god stuff, But he is apparently an acolyte of the Scarab God, and that's fine and that's cool. But what is this guy's color identity?
Orzov.
Nope.
Oh, right. Esper. Sorry.
Correct. So this is a little tricky in that you only have to pay 2 of the 3 colors to cast him, but you can play an Esper white, black, blue deck. I've been hearing people talking about this in CEDH. Why? Because of that fact that he's a 2 mana 1/3 that gets you access to all 3 of these colors, and discarding a card is something that you can often do for free or as a benefit for something else. And creating a tapped token that's a copy of a card except it's a zombie can also be really good because that's not casting a spell, so it can't be countered. You can discard Thassa's Oracle, which is the most common win condition in CEDH, and put it onto the battlefield without it being a spell that can be countered. So that's why people like this. Now, do we like it? I don't. I don't. This is not exciting to me.
It's kind of like my Brenner deck, but zombies instead.
Yeah.
And it involves more discard rather than.
Well, because creatures don't naturally get discarded. You need to find creatures that have a way of discarding themselves, like cycling, or you need to find other cards that have you discard cards from your hand. So this is a what you would call a payoff, and most of the time this is not a great payoff. The time where it's a really good payoff is Thassa's Oracle, the best and most popular win condition in CEDH. Outside of that,
Not a lot of options.
I don't like it. So here's the thing, though. I feel like this needs to go in like questionable, because I don't like it. Okay, and also I guess I could put it in not for me, but here's the thing: is that I don't think it's for you either unless you play CEDH. And you're gonna. By the way, this is in the Aetherdrift Commander set. This is gonna be in precons, and this card is probably going to be really crappy for your precon experience. So I don't think it's for you either. I don't think it's for 99% of us, but if you're playing CEDH and you want a new Esper commander, this has some real potential.
Okay, so questionable. Very, very
Exactly.
specific circumstances.
It's not like it's a bad card, but it's not just not for me. It's probably not for you either. So we might need to change these tiers around a little bit or something. I don't know, but I think this is still going to be good enough for now. So the next card on the list, though, is Hazaret Godseeker, the one surviving god of the old Amonkhet gods. So why don't you tell us what she does?
Well, the cost is 2 mana, one of them red, and that gets you a 5/3 god. So
Woo!
we're looking great here.
Mm-hmm.
One with indestructible and haste.
Woo!
All right, start your engine, same as last time. For 1 mana and to tap, you can target a creature with power 2 or less, and that creature cannot be blocked. Okay. And Hazaret can't attack or block unless you have max speed.
There you go. Okay.
There's
so,
our drawback.
Yes. That, like the gods from the first few sets that there were gods in, they seem overpowered because they're indestructible and their power and toughness are both higher than their cost. And they have other abilities, but they can't do combat or act like a normal creature until you've met some difficult threshold. But how difficult is it in a mono red deck to start your engines and get it up to max speed?
Not that much, I'd wager.
Well, I would say that in most decks, the hardest thing would be, in most commander decks, the hardest thing would be to find your start your engines cards to start that engine on turn 1, and ideally get it to speed 2 on turn 1.
But with Hazaret, yeah, you're getting that engine going early. Look at that. At that cost means, yeah, you're putting pedal to the metal here.
Yeah, that means that while you could get off to the best start possible if you drew like one of those new start your engines lands, tap it for a colorless, and play our boy Ginger Brute. Ginger Brute, by the way, has just gotten a lot better. considering there are 3 lands that enter untapped, start your engines at 1, and tap for a colorless. And all 3 of those are probably going to be the starting engine for all of these speed decks. And uh, Ginger Brute is the best thing to play with them.
Run, run, run as fast as you can.
Can't catch him, he's the Ginger Brute man. So, then also, target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. That's another way that you can...
That's basically one of the Ginger Brute's abilities,
Mm-hmm.
except now you can grant it to other things.
And if I'm reading this correctly, haste means that you can use this ability on the turn that you play her, even if she's not a creature, or sorry, even if she can't... Oh yeah, that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
Okay, some of the older cards like this say they're not a creature, but no, she's a creature, so this 100% can be used on the turn you play her if you've got 3 mana.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's
So-
big speedy.
So the way that we see it, then, you're going to be playing
I am speed.
efficient, low-cost creatures. This is going to be one of the fastest decks in Commander. The only trick that there is left to it, honestly, at this point, is you got to have more payoffs for having max speed. Because I can see this deck getting max speed on turn 3 like 75% of the time, and then what? You're attacking for 5. That's great in the early game, but your opponents are going to catch up to you. You can't do 40 damage to 3 opponents or 21 damage to 3 opponents fast enough, can you?
This is basically the Formula 1 of the speed track here.
Ooh, I was going to say it's the drag race.
Drag race, thank you. I can never remember what those little rocket-shaped cars are called.
Yeah, and there's a variety of different kinds of drag races, but the point is you get off the line as fast as you can, and you have the shortest race that you can.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, where would you think to put her on our tier list?
I like it.
I feel the same. Am I excited to build it? I don't know, because honestly, the drag race style magic is not always that fun for other people, but I think that it's more of a fun exercise to see if you can pull it off in people's faces.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes having a plan that simple means that you can devote a certain portion of your deck to like how you make sure this plan doesn't go too wrong, and you can focus, and if the plan does go wrong, then you can still get back on track again. So these decks can actually be kind of fun if they're a little single-minded.
All right, who's next?
Who is next is Calaxion Hunger Tyrant. You want to read the text on this one?
Galactic Scar is full of craters which are home to terrifying predators of immense size and savagery. Yet even among such company, Calaxion and her insatiable hunger eclipses them all. Alright, a bit like the octopus we had earlier, we have a relatively cheap card for a very high attack cost, so neato, but quite frail.
Yeah, so 3 mana for a 7/2 is kind of nuts. In terms of, I don't know that we've ever had that much power for that little mana cost without an overt drawback, but also 2 toughness is a bit of a drawback.
But then again, this is I guess for this one you would want, for me, if you were to ask me, I would want ramp and I would want haste. I want this thing coming out as often as possible and just biting everything in sight.
So, normally, in fact, what my mind first started going to is, oh, what this is for is crewing. You can get a huge crew going, or mount, but crew, because they're usually artifacts and a lot of them are colorless. You could do, this is where you could actually do your vehicle deck, at least all the colorless and black ones, and this thing can crew the biggest of them really early, consistently. So strangely enough, I think this is maybe a decent commander as long as you can do a mono black crew deck. However, you just got me thinking about one other thing. 7 power is a magic number in Commander. Do you know why?
Because that's the minimum number of commander damage because if you can make that happen 3 times to one person, they are out.
Right. That
Oh my god, you give this thing double strike and it's game over.
Well, not quite. I mean, it needs triple strike to be game over, but
Okay, it's not game over, but it's like, ooh, you're in trouble.
absolutely. So, if you manage to deal 21 or more combat damage with your commander to a single player, that player dies. That's the commander damage rule. So, if this thing attacks and hits the same player 3 times, you win the game because that's 21 damage. If you have 6 power, even though it's only 1 power less, you now have to attack an entire 4th time. Having 8 power does not improve those numbers. In fact, you only see those numbers improve once you get to 11, I believe, because then you can kill someone in 2 strikes.
Yeah.
So, since 11 power is almost unheard of, especially even on a legendary creature, 7 is the sweet spot, the most efficient power that a legendary creature can have in Commander to do commander damage to people. And this is, I think, the lowest cost ever for it. So, in terms of just raw numbers, like if Magic cards tended to be blank, this would be the best for Commander.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they aren't usually blank.
No.
So,
I would put this in not for me.
you know, and I'm tempted to put it in I like it, but you know what? I think I will lean on your thing for this. Not for me, but because this deck is going to be very mechanical, most likely.
Oh, yes. Once again, we've got a case of the deck has to support the commander rather than vice versa. But there's more options than with the octopus. There is a point to doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm glad that the octopus is 2 tiers down because this has maybe some niche uses. You'd never do it as a commander. This one, if you looked at this and actually if you look across the table and your opponent says their commander is Calaxion,
What are you hiding in that deck?
so normally if your opponent is playing some commander that's a little boring, that's a little lame, that doesn't have much going on here, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, maybe they just don't want a very complicated deck. They're just going kind of simple and stuff like that."
How many
But
accessories do you have to go with that?
But this is the one that you look at and you're like, what are you up to? Why in the world would someone choose a commander with no rules text, with no abilities? I would be very sus, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone built a really cool deck out of this, actually.
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Now you know what your April Fool's Day gag is going to be.
All right, next we're on to Ketra Moose, the new Dawn, who doesn't look like a moose.
That's because it's mousse.
That's probably why.
They're a sugar.
Oh, like sucralose and glucose?
Precisely.
Okay, want to read them?
Yes. All right. 3 mana, 1 white and 1 black. Menace, lifelink, indestructible, because God. Sounded like Shang Tsung over there. Ketramos can't... Actually, no, that would be Shao Kahn. Ketramos can't attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile, so get your paths ready. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and lose a life.
Okay, you know what? I want to see the alternate art on this one. It's actually cheaper. Oh. Florian Bertmer. I mean, that's a choice. That's like comic book style to me.
It's not bad, but it's comic booky.
Yeah, for some reason right now we are actually seeing the Vorthoses getting out into the market, assigning pre-release prices to cards where for some reason the prettier art is the higher price. You don't see that every day. So that said, mechanically, I mean, let's do the vanilla test. How are we looking?
Let's see, we're doing good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
3 mana for 4 power and 4 toughness. That's fine. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, we add the straightforward and amazing keywords: menace, lifelink, and indestructible. So then, of course, we can't really judge this as just a simple 3 mana 4/4 creature, right? Because we have the hurdle that can't attack or block unless there's 7 more cards in exile. Now, how are we going to do that in Orzhov?
Let's see. We got to have Path to Exile for one
Of
thing.
course, everyone plays that. It's good. Swords.
Oh, swords.
Swords to plowshares.
Oh, yeah, swords.
So everyone plays Swords to plowshares.
All right, so that's 2.
Also, how about we just read the text on him again, the last part?
Whenever 1 or more cards are put in exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and lose a life. So you've got your card draw, and you do lose some life, but he's got lifelink, so once he's on the field, he can help you with that pretty easy like.
Once he comes alive, yes. And
He's stepping on a dragon skull, I just noticed.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Okay. Yeah, I guess so.
He's like, eat that, bolus.
Oh, and the flavor text?
Let the past die so the future might live.
Oh, yeah, you were saying that reminded you of
Of The Last Jedi, which I actually liked.
Yeah, of Kylo Ren. And that was what he says in the trailer, basically.
That's basically his thesis statement from Last Jedi onward. Let the past die so the future might live.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad message, but it is certainly a white-black message.
Yep.
And it is certainly a Ketramos things get exiled from the graveyard message. But the mechanic here is telling you should be taking cards from graveyards and battlefields and exiling them.
Exile all the things.
And boy, are people gonna hate you. People are gonna hate you because the card Farewell, for some reason,
Bye. Oh, no.
I mean, this card's gonna do it all by itself.
Oh, my, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you cast Farewell, and you're gonna have 7 or more cards in exile. Because you can just choose graveyards, enchantments, creatures, artifacts, any combination
Just
of
pick
them.
one.
And Ketramos could be on the battlefield and you don't choose creature, but more likely you do choose creature and then you play him like right after or something. And then you've got 7 or more cards in exile. And here's one of the great things. Once you've got 7 or more cards in exile, they should stay there forever. There's almost no way of getting cards back out of exile with
It
effects
can be
like
done,
this.
but it's very difficult and you don't see it very often.
And of course, there are cards that do exile other cards temporarily. There are plenty of those too, and you'll probably play some. But for the most part, you'll be exiling cards. The point here is that once he gets turned into a creature, if he dies and comes back, if he gets bounced or exiled himself or whatever, put back in the command zone and brought back out, he'll still be a creature, a 4/4 menace, lifelink, indestructible that can attack. So honestly, this card's pretty cool.
As a commander,
I mean, 4 isn't an ideal number for, like, commander damage necessarily, but he's got so many good elements here.
yeah.
And he tells you what kind of deck to build.
And even if he can't attack or block yet, he's still getting the,
Card draw.
yeah, he's still getting you that card draw.
And incentivizing the exile thing. So, where do you think?
I would say either not for me or I like it.
I'm feeling the same thing. I think I'm gonna put it under not for me, just because what puts things kind of over the top for me is when they also lend to gameplay that I think everyone at the table will enjoy. And I'm just afraid that this is going to be a deck full of removal. It's going to be a black-white control deck, and your opponents are just going to be annoyed by it. Because the only kind of opponents that aren't annoyed by you removing all their stuff are the ones who, like, cast 2 sorceries and win the game, and those annoy me. So, I would rather be playing a little more fairsies, playing on the battlefield and, like, rumbling.
All right.
So, next.
This is going to be a really long video.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. We're at...
K.
Yeah, we're at K. Let's see. Okay. So, we have Kolodin, Triumph Caster.
Got a nice little Boros.
Okay.
That's just 2 mana and 2 power, 3 toughness, so he passes that test. Mounts and vehicles you control have haste. Ooh. Whenever a mount you control enters, it becomes saddled until end of turn. Ooh. Whenever a vehicle you control enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Dang, this guy's got it. I think we have our great vehicle mount commander.
Yeah, and you want to read the flavor text too?
Stay information. We win this together or not at all.
Hell yeah. And then This version, for some reason, he reminds me of like Idris Elba with hair or something. He's like, "We are canceling the apocalypse." Like, excuse me, I appear to have won the race. Which canonically, I believe this team did win the last 2 times in a row
Ooh.
because red white is the fucking fastest, and they're the ones who care the most about first strike, haste, little creatures that go fast, artifacts, things like that. So double strike. Um,
There are a lot of possibilities with this guy.
and I would
But
say
mostly go mount and vehicle, go bananas for vehicles and mounts, and whatever else you do, it'll work.
I am glad that they threw us a bone here for the whole mounts thing because red white has barely been a thing in mounts before. In large part because there's been like basically one set with mounts before. It was just
Thunder Junction.
Junction, yeah. So I really felt like we needed at least one more set that had a pretty big focus on mounts before mounts would be viable. And
Looks like we got it.
unlike the green white commander that we saw before that really says go find the one or couple of good mounts or
You
vehicles
just
in
need
your
the
deck
good one.
and put it in your hand, this one is now saying no, you want to have a deck full of mounts and
Get
vehicles,
everybody.
and every one of them that you play is going to be better than it was before because it auto saddles, it auto crews, and it has haste. At least the first time, it does it automatically, and that's great.
Rah!
So,
Meow.
honestly, I think we
I
don't
think he needs to go.
need to analyze this too much more. Where is he? Here.
Yeah, I think he has to go to the top.
Well, I like it, but would you be excited to build it?
You know what? I might. I don't know if I will because I'm extremely picky and I have a limited amount of bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
But I might. You know,
He's
I
the...
might call it. I might call it Colladin's car collection.
Ah, okay. Because, yeah, he's the official, like, race car commander in this set. As in, like, technically there are at least 10 characters in this set who are piloting race cars, but he so far is the only one
He's
that
the
you could build a
guy.
deck full of cars and race with them. By the way, I just want to compare him to one other commander as a little bit of comparison here. I guess I have caps lock on. This is kind of the old vehicle commander. See what you think about her.
All right. Other dwarves you get 1/1. Each vehicle gets 1/1 as long as it's a creature. When she becomes tapped, you can pay X. If you do, reveal the top X cards your library. Put all dwarf vehicle cards from them onto your hand. Then put the rest in.
Mm-hmm. So, she is a 3-mana 3/3. She buffs your dwarves, and she buffs your vehicles. So the vehicles are bigger, and she can help you find more dwarves and vehicles if you tap her and then pay some mana.
No, it's when she becomes tapped, then you can pay X so you can attack and then do the thing.
Yes. Yes, so you have to find some way of tapping her. Attacking makes sense, but you could also use her to crew a vehicle, and that will tap her.
That'll do it.
So, yeah, she's pretty good.
She's a fleet
Kaladin
builder.
is also really good. So, honestly, if you already have a Depala deck, put Kaladin in it.
Yeah.
If you haven't built a deck like this, maybe build it with Kaladin, but put Depala in it. The only difference between these two decks really is that this deck is going to have some dwarves in it, and this deck is, well, maybe 1 or 2 dwarves.
Do we have dwarves? That's great!
Yes!
But it doesn't matter that much.
Okay. So let's put him there.
Yeah.
All right.
And I could see a lot of people being excited to build with Colladin.
Mm-hmm. Next we have Lagarin, Soul of Alacria, who I believe, is the mount of the other character from before.
All right. 1 green, 1 white, flying. Whenever Lagarin attacks while saddled, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target mounts and or vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Saddle 1, and it's a 1/1.
Okay. When Lagarin attacks while saddled. So, it's a 2-mana 1/1 flyer, which usually okay, at least when we're talking about the vanilla test, every ability that your creature has a chance of like cutting into the stats for your vanilla test. You have flying, you're usually going to lose a power or a toughness. You have the ability to attack and get counters, you're going to lose a power or toughness. Except Lagarin, because when you attack with it while settled, you get, uh, let's see, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target mounts and/or vehicles.
That's a 1/1, so that brings it. That means you could put a single 1/1 on Lagarin, so that brings it up to 2/2, which closes the gap, but it also isn't that great of an advantage.
So that does mean that, like, most of the time, it's going to be a 2-mana 2/2 with flying and getting bigger. By the time it hits the first time, it'll be at least a 2/2, I'd imagine.
Which is
And,
going to be early on, and it's also flying, so there's that.
okay,
That
so
helps.
how good is this as a commander? Strangely, this is a better mount and vehicle commander than the other one because it actually will put +1/+1 counters on other mounts and vehicles you control while it's doing its thing. However, I think that counterintuitively, we've just made um, her way better because she can tutor up a mount or whatever. She can tutor up Lagarin, and now you have both pieces. These are partners. So you play her, you go find them, and you play them, and once you've got them both together, now you've got a green-white mount commander deck that's worth a damn. So
That's still two parts to a whole, and
this is what I'm seeing. I want to put them both in questionable now.
okay.
Because the fact that you can use this to go find this, and then they do benefit each other significantly more. This commander does not make sense on its own. But if this is in the 99, then this makes some sense. And does this make sense as a commander? Not really. But if it's in the 99 of that, then it does. So, yeah, I think I want to put them both in questionable.
Okay.
All right.
Still not great, though.
No.
Okay, the plushie.
Yes.
The puntable plushie.
And I think I just want to have you read the cards initially going forward like this.
Alright, that's a 5 mana, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red. Double strike, vigilance, haste. Ooh, nice. Exhaust green. Exhaust green tap, add 3 mana of any one color. Exhaust blue tap, draw 3 cards. Exhaust red tap, loot, deals 3 damage to any target.
Wow. Okay, so
And each exhaust ability can only be done once, and it's a 2/4.
okay, so importantly, that exhaust, when it's saying it can only be done once, that means it can only be done once per game. Not once per turn or anything like that, once per game. Except every time that loot enters the battlefield, the game treats it as a new object. And
Oh,
it
that's gonna be
forgets.
so annoying.
So if loot has exhausted all of his abilities and then like dies and recasts from the command zone, then you can exhaust all of his abilities again. They're unexhausted again.
Having
Also,
said that,
maybe you bounce loot yourself. Also, maybe you just flicker loot. Also, it has haste, so it can use any of its abilities the turn it comes out. Also, it's got vigilance and double strike for some reason. This thing's a monster. Also, are you familiar with the boon cycle from Alpha?
of course not.
Okay, didn't think so. Um, so, holy shit, what the... Hold on. $99. Hold on, let's get that one up on screen.
I do like this better. This is cute.
Wow, this is so anime.
In a good way.
Yeah. Okay. So, the original boon cycle from Alpha are you pay 1 mana for an instant that does 3 of something. And they go in order from best to worst. The best of them is Ancestral Recall, where you pay 1 blue to have target player draw 3 cards. The next best is probably Dark Ritual. You pay a black, you get 3 black mana. The next best of them is probably Lightning Bolt. You pay a red, and you deal 3 damage to any target. So we got 2 of the 3 boons on here, 2 of the 5 boons. And then the green boon is actually Giant Growth. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
Yeah, these all these abilities are in line with the mana they cost.
Mm-hmm.
Add 3 mana to get your big stompy on the field, draw a bunch of cards, do some damage.
Well, and then the last of the boons, by the way, is Healing Salve in white. You can gain 3 life or prevent 3 damage. That's by far the worst of them. You don't see people play that card anymore. Heck, you don't see people play Giant Growth anymore. So this doesn't have Giant Growth. This has something better than Giant Growth. This has more like Dark Ritual. But you can make any color. Not a combination of colors, but any one color. Also, Lightning Bolt is considered a very good card. Dark Ritual is considered a very good card. Ancestral Recall is one of the best cards of all time. It's banned in some formats. It doesn't get reprinted. It's way, way too powerful. This ability is incredible.
All right, so this little guy is more than meets the eye, which seems to be his whole vibe.
Yeah. And I've heard people talking about pairing it up with a certain kitten.
This place your kitty.
Uh-huh. Because of that avoidance ability, if you want to read that.
Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Yep, turns out casting a non-creature spell is pretty easy. In a deck like this, you might just have not a whole lot of permanent spells and just be doing Spellslinger stuff. And every time that you do, you flicker Loot. And Loot can make 3 mana, draw 3 cards, or deal 3 damage to any target. And then you flicker him again, and he gets unexhausted again. Over and over.
Wow, this guy is really evasive and really annoying.
Finally, they've made a card for Loot that people will actually want to play. Because the main criticism that I've seen of Loot so far is that they seem to have kind of foisted it on us as this incredibly toyetic
Boy, this bite is slushy!
Yeah, it's like, here's your Pikachu. You all want a Pikachu, right? And we're like, well, no, Magic
Not
the
really.
Gathering. We're a little older demographic. We don't really
everybody
need
loves a
Pikachu.
Pikachu, but we don't really need one. We're good.
Yeah, and I feel like we kind of gradually grew to love Fibblethip over time
Actually,
as a comparison.
if anything, Fibblethip is the Pikachu.
Yeah, and they've done that, but they wanted to make a Pikachu that is like relevant to the plot, and all that, and then they did that, and then most of us were like, okay, it's kind of obvious what you're doing here. I don't like how obvious it is. But now at least we have a card we're likely gonna play. Fuck,
And
this thing's good.
And I do like this art style better than the other one. The other one just
Yeah.
makes him look a little bit like... It kind of reminds me of, like, those awful app ads that are like, play our game! We swear it's not a Skinner box!
Yeah. Our game looks just like this. Imagine it moves. Like, we didn't put animation in our game, but, you know. So, anyway, like, there's a lot to say about Loot. I've said most of what I want to, though. So, where would you think to put it?
I like it?
I want to put it in Not For Me.
Okay.
Because after all the things I just said, I think that this thing doesn't actually send you in a particular direction. And I will be happy if my opponents are playing Loot and they're having a good time. Good for them. But that it doesn't like inspire me per se, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So next we've got Mendicant Core Guidelight. Check this guy out.
Alright. 1 white, 1 blue. Mendicant Core's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. We got another one of those.
Ooh.
Start your engines, and at max speed, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1, and if you do, copy it.
So, he cares about the number of artifacts you control, and when he's at max speed, you can copy your artifact spells to make more artifacts for his power to be bigger.
2 soul rings!
Whoa! So, this is kind of good in that it's only 2 mana for a guy who does these things. But it's also kind of bad because he doesn't have evasion or card draw or ramp. He doesn't have any of that stuff built into him. Granted, you could be taking cards that are card draw or ramp and copying them, but you have to draw the good cards in order to make more of the good cards. On his own, he doesn't do any of that.
Yeah, for this guy, you really have to be into artifacts.
Uh huh. And I've seen some artifact decks that are pretty fun, but a lot of them are playing a lot of the same stuff. And especially in blue white, that is kind of the most boring color combination. Hate to say it, but it is. Oh wait, let's see. Well, that's nice. That doesn't
That's
blow me
pretty
away,
cool
but
art.
it's yeah, good job, Dan Mumford. Um, so I'm kind of done with this guy quickly. Mendicant Core, I'm thinking it's not for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Um, in fact, I'm almost tempted to put it in questionable, except I think that once again, you could probably fill your deck with like good artifacts, and then this just makes them a little better.
If artifacts are your hyper focus, this is your guy.
Just remember to have ones that you can copy for great effect, you know. But I mean that's not much to remember. Yeah, this guy's probably an easy build for a decent deck.
Also, I don't mean to be rude, but can we kind of speed this up? I'm getting really hungry,
Okay, okay.
and we still have a bunch left.
Yeah, I was debating whether or not this needed to be two videos in the first place. What if we say we do make this two videos and this is part one and we take a little break?
Works for me.
Okay, then we'll catch you in part two, which, with any luck, I'll upload them both on the same day.
Woohoo!
All right, catch you in the next one.